View from the East. My name is Daniel Vallis, and welcome to our channel. Thank you for all those who have prayed for this ministry over these past few days especially, and me for strength and wisdom. I definitely need it, and I definitely appreciate your prayers and your kind words. It has been a great encouragement to me in this ministry to keep moving forward in faith. You know, I'm human just like everybody else, and it is a great encouragement to see our fellow brothers and sisters helping to hold the ropes and to also encourage each other to love and do good works, and to see everybody pray for each other and encourage each other. It is really exciting to see what the Lord is doing in our community right now. In our last video, we talked about the gap between Virgo and Leo. In the Chaldean, the Babylonian, the Sumerian, it's pretty much all the same thing, in that ancient astronomical view, which was used at the time of Christ and also by the wise men. And this is what we need to consider and keep in mind, and this is what we're going to study today, is we need to look at Bible prophecy and the Bible signs, not from modern concepts and the modern astronomy and borders and boundaries necessarily today, although we do consider that somewhat. But we need to make sure we are looking at Bible prophecy through the proper perspective. And the more we have a proper understanding based on an ancient understanding, the clearer our understanding of the picture can be, and also the timing of where we are now with the actors that are on this celestial stage as well. Matthew 2:1. Now when Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of Herod the king, behold, there came wise men from the east to Jerusalem, saying, Where is he that is born King of the Jews? For we have seen his star in the east, and are come to worship him. When Herod the king had heard these things, he was troubled, and all Jerusalem with him. Several important major details in just a short passage. There are no extra details in God's Word. He doesn't throw things in for fluff. No. When we look into the treasure map of God's Word and are trying to see what He has concealed, the treasure that He has for us, there's important clues that we need to take note of. And this is where Bible study comes into play. When we read through God's Word, when we see a word that catches our attention, we should wonder, why is that word there? Why is this described in such a certain way? What is the context? Let's learn more about it. And we dig into the words and get a larger understanding of the whole concept and the whole picture there. And we mentioned that it's very notable that nobody in Jerusalem is recorded as having looked for this star that was prophesied. They knew the Messiah was coming around this time. It was the regular rumor, and when you read through Scripture, you can find that everybody knew and had a general expectation that Messiah was coming around that time. And it's very similar to today. You ask a lot of Christians whether they expect the rapture to happen soon or end-time events or whatever. They'll say, yeah, we're in the end days, and they have a general idea that, yes, we're in the end days and things could start hitting the fan real quick, but they still have in the back of their mind, it's not going to happen this week or this month or this year. It's close, but not that close. And that's the general mentality that was in Jerusalem too. They knew Messiah was coming, but that really didn't do anything for them. They weren't too interested in looking, apparently, because all of a sudden these wise men showed up from the east and said, we have seen his star. And they're directly referencing the prophecy about the scepter and the star. And this is what troubled everybody. It's like, whoa, wait a minute, you've seen his star? We haven't seen his star. What did it look like? Nobody was looking for it. And it should catch our attention when the Bible records that the only people who actually saw the star prophecy fulfilled were these wise men. They saw something that nobody else saw because they were looking, number one. But when the Bible singles out a single group and says these people are the only ones who have seen the star, we need to take note of the details that aid the understanding and perspective of seeing that star and seeing that prophecy fulfilled. And the Bible tells us twice and emphasizes in just these 3 verses. These wise men, and when you do some word study on it, they're the Magi and had a very good understanding of astronomy, and they were from the east, which would be toward the Babylon region. So the Bible tells us what their profession was, what they were good at doing, and where they were from, and where they were when they saw the star. They said, for we have seen a star in the east. They're talking not necessarily that they saw the star in the east part of the sky. They're saying, we were in the east when we saw the star. And so the Bible is giving us several important clues here that we need to consider. They did not see this prophecy fulfilled from a Hebrew perspective. They were seeing it from an Eastern perspective. They were seeing it from another country, another culture, another astronomical view too as well. We need to take that into note when we look into these similar prophecies and this story being told in the celestial heavens. We need to consider that in mind. These are Gentiles viewing the prophecy from a Gentile perspective with a Gentile set of astronomical data. And again, it should catch our attention that God used Gentiles here and gave them the unique opportunity to see his star because they looked for it and they saw it. And the Bible pretty much states without saying that nobody else was. And so if we want to be wise, we need to take note of the details that they mentioned aided their perspective of seeing the star. And then we need to look for his star too as well. We are looking at the scepter as well. When we think of the first time that the prophecy was fulfilled of Christ's first coming, and we consider the backstory, understanding the story is important to understanding the celestial signs, because you're seeing the story portrayed and rehearsed in the heavens, the tapestry of redemption being played out. And so these wise men weren't just astronomers. They were astronomers who were familiar with the backstory. And many suspect that Daniel is the one who passed down the story and the background and the picture patterns and shadows and patterns that they should be looking for, and maybe particularly the actors that they should be focusing on. Unique activity with Jupiter, for example, and Regulus. But they had an understanding of the backstory, and they saw the story being rehearsed uniquely in the heavens. And they could identify that, yes, they saw the star come out of Jacob, out of Judah, and the scepter arising out of Israel from his line, Jacob's line, who's also known as Israel. But then also when you know the backdrop in the heavens too with the snake and the woman, knowing the story is so important. They were not looking at just unique planetary alignments and astronomical events just by a singular clinical perspective. No, they were looking at it through a perspective of scripture and prophecy. They were looking for certain messages and symbols being rehearsed in the heavens. And when they saw that star, when they saw that message rehearsed, which was a series of events, it wasn't just one singular event, when they saw the message, the announcement, so to speak, of the Star of Jacob, that is when they got on their camels, they rose up and they went out to seek the king with their partial information, and then they got more information as they went out. But remember, they were in the east when they saw the star, and they were looking at the story through their cultural, Gentile, Babylonian perspective. That was the astronomical data set they were using when they saw the star. We need to take note of that, because that was the first time, and we are expecting Christ to come the second time. We are expecting Shiloh, we are expecting the scepter to come and pick up what he has already purchased. We are looking for the Lion of the tribe of Judah, who is going to gather his people before the tribulation starts. We are looking for him to come again the second time. The second time is different than the second coming, so keep those separate. But he is going to be coming a second time in the same pattern of his first time. And this is why we are looking for the scepter again, because we know the scepter is up in heaven. He still holds it. He is on the throne. He is going to rule and reign forever. So the scepter is in the heavens, and that's why we are looking in the heavens for the scepter right now. And the embodiment of Judah is in the heavens now too as well. And so that's why we're looking for all the symbolism up there, because that's where it's at. It's not down here. And we're looking for him to appear this second time to pick up what he has redeemed the first time. He's going to redeem and pick it up. So since we're looking for him the second time, and he told us to look up and we'll be able to tell that he's drawing nigh, that our redemption, that our pickup is drawing nigh, he told us we will see the story. So we need to be familiar with the story from the first time. Also be familiar with the perspective that helped them see the sign the first time and where they saw it from. We need to be familiar with not only the story, but their perspective. And then likewise, once we see the sign and can tell that, yes, he is drawing nigh, then we rise up. Once we know the bridegroom cometh, we rise up, we trim our lamp, and we go out to meet him, just like the wise men. And then the Bible also tells us that there's going to be a third time the same sign is seen as well. a different portion of this story, though. See, we are expecting the second time, but only the first part of the story, up through the lion part, because that's who's coming back for us, the Lion of the tribe of Judah. He's not coming back as a man-child again. So we have full expectation in this Omega portion of the story that he's going to be returning as the Lion of the tribe of Judah to redeem what he has already paid for. But Jesus Christ himself told his disciples that this sign, this story, will be seen during the tribulation too as well, as a third time. And he makes mention that after the tribulation has started and different events have happened, and then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven, and then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn. There's going to be a delay between that second part, 1,260 days, like Revelation 12 says. But Jesus told his disciples, during the tribulation, people will see the story of the coming of the Son of Man in the heavens, which primarily relates to the Virgo portion, the woman portion. They're going to see Jupiter go through the pregnancy process and lead all the way up to the Revelation 12 celestial date. They're going to see that rehearsed in the heavens, and Jesus told his disciples, they are going to see this during the tribulation. They weren't paying attention to the story, and especially the first part being rehearsed for them, but they will definitely see the second part, the sign of the Son of Man, reminding them that he was prophesied to come the first time. And this is why they're mourning, because they realize Jesus Christ was Messiah. He was Emmanuel, God with us, and we missed it the first time. And it's being rehearsed for them right during the middle of the tribulation. And this sign leads to their mourning and a heart action that also goes toward the gathering, the physical gathering, and also the spiritual gathering of many people during the latter part of the tribulation. The Revelation 12 sign is in the tribulation. Even Jesus said so. But for all these instances, the first time, the second time, and the third time, you have to know the story to be able to see and recognize it being rehearsed in the heavens. Knowing where to look and with the proper perspective will help you see it. And we are expecting the Lion of the tribe of Judah at the moment. In our Shiloh booklet, we talk about a lot of the backstory of the Shiloh prophecy and Judah and all of that wonderful, amazing story that you have to be familiar with and you have to know before you can understand what we're looking at right now and to fully understand the importance of it and why we're looking now. And on page 14, we talk about how constellations are more than lines. We've gone over this several different times. But the stars, knowing where the stars are, their technical location, that clues us in where to look. But the concept is tacked on top of that with our imagination. And there's many different constellations, even right around Leo, that the actual concept looks absolutely nothing like the star formation. The crow, which is right under Leo, for example, it looks like a box, but it's a crow. And so you just have to mentally superimpose a crow on that, and it's a good thing that the prophecy is not dealing with the crow, because that would be really difficult. We at least have something that somewhat resembles a lion. But constellations are more than lines, and so this is what we've been trying to understand is, are we looking at the proper set of stars to make sure we're looking in the right place first? And then once we have that figured out, are we fleshing it out properly to have an understanding of the concept? Because we want to know, where are the legs? Is Jupiter, is the scepter still in the legs? Is it between the feet? And so we're merging the technical star data with the conceptual image as well. And in our last video, we talked about how the Babylonians, along the ecliptic, they marked out the beginning stars and the end stars of the technical grouping of the stars that make up the different constellations. They didn't have boundaries, but they marked off, okay, here's the beginning of this concept, and here's the end of this concept. They would mark off along the ecliptic, pick stars close to the ecliptic, that would help them identify, okay, look over in this direction, and you'll see the lion, you'll see Virgo, etc. And we talked about how they defined the lion as from Epsilon Leonis to Beta Virginius, which is Zavi Java that we've been looking at and where Jupiter is passed just right now. So that was the star set. Then you superimpose the lion over on top of that. So it does extend beyond that on either side, but the actual stars are located at those positions along the ecliptic. But then we also looked at how they considered the Virgin, the woman, to start at Y Virginius. And that is a very sizable gap. It doesn't look like it here, but it's going to take Jupiter 2 months to cross that gap. 2 months. Yes, that's a long time. And so this is a very important gap that we need to be studying and looking at. Because even if we divided it halfway down the middle to try to figure out a conceptual border between the two, that's still a month of travel on either side of it. And obviously we expect Christ's return in just a few days, but we can look forward just on the radar and have more assurance that yes, the gap that we're looking at is very large, and the concept, therefore, of the lion is larger than we currently have an understanding of with our modern perspective. When we look at the stars in that area of Virgo and the lion, and I took off all the other details so we could just see it from a pure view and try to see how did they see it. So this is looking at the area, and you can already see some of the stars of the greater magnitude. And if you're familiar with stars, you might be able to recognize where Leo is, and maybe some of the woman too as well. But just from looking up into the night sky, we have an idea of where Jupiter is and where it's been traveling. So that's the path of Jupiter, where it is now, and then also where it will be during and leading up to the Revelation 12 sign too. So during that portion of the story. And the ecliptic's about here. So just looking up into the heavens, we have that idea. And for our modern perspective, many star charts will show Leo connected up like that. But then on other charts, you'll see them connected up like that. There's variation even today. And this is generally how I think of it. And when I go outside and look at it earlier in the year, that's pretty much what I saw. Those particular stars really stood out the most to me. So that's how I connected it, but the star charts show something else. And that's our modern concept. But then we also looked at, there were many charts that showed it with the extended leg, and they are part of Leo too as well. And so there's different ways you can connect the dots and different concepts, even today, of how big is the lion. And then we looked at just overlaying a conceptual view. If we just looked up into the heavens and tried to imagine it as a lion, we knew where the tail is, we know where the legs are supposed to be and the front paws. And so we can mentally overlay a lion in our head. And the star charts tell us that Virgo is right there. And again, there's so much variation with Virgo. This is one way to depict it on star charts, but others have it like this. And usually on prophecy charts that talk about Revelation 12, you often see them portrayed like this, or very similar with the arm and the head. So even today, there's slight confusion about how it is. Now, we know that Jupiter right now is just past Zavijava. So that red dot right there is where Jupiter is right now. But then the second red dot down in the woman, that's where Jupiter will be at the Revelation 12 date, in between the legs, in the concept of the legs. And the Revelation 12 blends concepts with the technical data too as well. So let's turn off the modern lines and let's try to look at it from the Babylonian perspective. What were the wise men from the east? How would they see the lion? So let's just ghost out the modern idea of a lion so we could see how they compare. And we're going to see that they're very similar, but there is a critical difference for understanding the Shiloh prophecy. When we look at the Babylonian normal stars, which are the stars along the ecliptic used to designate the groupings along the ecliptic, we see the star for the head of the lion. So that tells us, okay, the head of the lion is going to be right there. The king, that's Regulus, so we know where that's at. The rump of the lion is going to be at that star, and the rear for the lion is going to be at B Virginius, which is Zavijava. And this is how you will find many ancient star charts and catalogs listed. They won't have pictures or illustrations necessarily of what they're talking about. They'll just list the star and say, this is the head of the lion, this is the rump of the lion, this is the rear foot of the lion. And then you just add in with your imagination the rest of the lion. They tell you where the key parts of the story are, but you fill in the rest. So when we take just those three stars, the head of the lion would be there, the star for the rump of the lion would be there, and what they considered the rear foot of the lion would be right there. So from their star catalogs, those are the three important stars. And Regulus is the king that hasn't changed. That's right in the heart of the lion, so that's not going to give us too much direction as to the shape. But these 3 points, the head of the lion, the rump of the lion, and the rear foot of the lion, can help us clue in. So let's overlay a line keyed to these points. So if we overlay a line with the rump touching the rump star, and then one touching the head star, and then one touching the rear foot star, we find that their concept of the lion is very close to a modern concept. But it's about a month further down the storyline than our modern concept. Now, of course, you can rotate the lion a little bit. That would be open to interpretation, depending on what the person had in their mind. But you could see, still at the rear foot of the lion, still at the rump of the lion, still at the head of the lion. And when we look at their concept of the designation stars for the concept, we can see that Jupiter is very well in between the feet right now. So this is very important for prophecy. Once we understand who was looking at the star the first time, who was looking at the scepter the first time, who saw the first star of Bethlehem sign, it was Gentiles in the east looking at it from an eastern perspective. This is a very important clue. So let's just turn off the line for a minute, and when you consider, let's just do a little brain test. When you consider the one on the right, that's the head of the lion, and then the middle one is the rump of the lion, and then the other one's the rear foot of the lion. If you just mentally superimpose a lion, it's going to be pretty much the same area. And you can definitely say, yes, stretching out a line in my mind's eye between all those points, Jupiter would definitely still be in the hind feet right now. And when we look at the chart again for their consideration of the woman, they had kind of a two-part idea. The portion closest to Leo they called the furrow, and that started at Y Virginius, which is right there, pretty close to the middle of what our modern concept of the Virgin is, but then Spica is the same. And so her general position hasn't changed, although she might be slightly shorter, but the Revelation 12 sign will still take place in the same position and the same concept. The main thing that has changed for us, in our perspective, is the lion, and that Jupiter is still in between the feet, and will be for quite some time, very safely to say so. And so then when we look on the storyline with that celestial map in the background, yes, we are definitely in between the feet right now. Jupiter is just past Zavijava. In just a few more days, it's going to be in the month 6th Elul, harvest. And so we still see that this story is very well still going on. And now that we have the proper perspective, a view from the east, we can see how strong this is. Having the right perspective of the wise men, the Gentiles, from the east, using their perspective, their astronomical perspective, and their familiarity with the story too as well, they saw the scepter. And the Bible records the clues to help give us a proper perspective so we can see the scepter again too as well, as we anticipate the second time when we are awaiting the Lion of the tribe of Judah to come and redeem his people. And in our Shiloh booklet, we talk a lot about the prophetic picture and the story and how it is so uniquely coming together right now. There's been so many celestial signs. The unique signs that point directly to the Lion of the tribe of Judah are also uniquely pointing to the Revelation 12 sign, which will be seen during the Tribulation. They are connected because they have the same actor at both points in the story. If one doesn't happen, the next one won't happen either. So that's why I keep saying there is no plan B. We keep going forward in faith, and we get more wisdom and light and assurance as we go forward. And we have great expectations still. We see that there are not that many days left until the start of the new civil year, which would mark the end of the Jubilee year. And we also see, very importantly though, that Jupiter is going to be going off the scene at sunset on the 2nd. So the main actor that we've been tracking and watching over these past few months is about to leave the stage. So we have great expectation that the scepter, all the symbolism tied to the scepter and how we've been told to watch and look up and see the scepter, he's about to step off the stage at a very important time on the calendar too as well. So we have great expectation for the days ahead. We do not know when Christ will return. It could be any day. It could be any moment. It could be right now. But we see that the options are getting richer and richer, and we're also getting more light as we go forward too as well. And all the pictures that we've looked at with the bride going out to meet the bridegroom and the Alpha and Omega and the Lion of the tribe of Judah, all these are still in play. We have to keep that in mind. And we just passed a third star of Bethlehem, so we have no excuse to refresh all the celestial signs that have drawn us to this point, all the story background, and go forward with faith and expectation. We've talked about the calendar in many videos before, so I'm not going to go over it here. But we know for sure, there's no doubt in my mind that we are on the right calendar. We've compared it with the agricultural harvest that took place in Israel. I corresponded personally with people over there in Israel who observed the harvest, and we even pulled pictures out of Jerusalem Post about the different harvests that were taking place. So we know exactly that our calendar lines up properly with the first fruit feasts lining up with the first fruit harvest at the time that they happened. So we know we're on the correct calendar, and we know that the Feast of Trumpets is expected on September 2nd. When we check out time and date, the new moon is on September 1st, which means the next day will be the first time that the sighting of the new moon, the actual visible celestial lights in the firmament, that will take place on September 2nd. So September 2nd in Jerusalem is when the actual new moon sighting is expected to be. And we talked about before on Earth Sky how they talk about this is going to be unique because Jupiter, on the last time it's going to be visible, is going to be right next to where the new moon is going to be sighted. So it's almost a passing of the baton. On its final encore, Jupiter is being seen with the moon right at the start of the new civil year, the expected sighting. So these two events lining up to the day are very unique and should catch our attention, especially when we consider that we are in the Jubilee year right now, and there is even an expectation of things happening prophetically before the year closes out. We don't know. But we do know that the moon and Jupiter will be seen together on September 2nd. That's going to be the expected sighting of the new moon, and also the last time that you will see Jupiter in the northern hemisphere, which is where Jerusalem is, and so that's what matters from the prophetic, symbolic shadow pattern picture. So we are in an amazing time. I don't know what to say. Definitely rehearse all the celestial signs, review the Shiloh booklet, look at everything coming together right now. I personally have the expectation that Christ's coming will be sooner rather than later, while the Jupiter sign is still strong, and while there is still time in the Jubilee calendar, just because of other expected prophetic events to be kicked into play. But we don't know for sure. We can't say for sure. We don't know the day or hour. But we do know we are quickly running out of time, and we are in the hind feet of Judah right now, and we are expecting his gathering, and so much coming together right now. Definitely download the updated printout of the Heavens Declare sheet. We have heard the announcement, behold the bridegroom cometh, go ye out to meet him. So now is the time when we examine our life, we trim our lamps, we cast off anything that is preventing us from shining bright for Christ, and we go out to meet the bridegroom, just like the wise men went out in faith and expectation boldly. We can go out boldly, and as we draw closer to him, we will hear him better, we will see him better, and our faith will be strengthened as we go forward. And now is the time also, as the bridesmaids, we help each other get ready for the meeting of our bridegroom, of our beloved. Serve Christ first and highest above all else. Maranatha.